Lang po.
Opo.
Bakit natin na gagawin kon-kon ang pag-aamyanda ng ating saligang batas kung ang ilalagay lang natin na panibagong dagdag sa ating constitution unless otherwise provided by law? Yun ang tanong ko sa Kongreso. Hindi ba magagawa, matatalakay ng Kongreso yung clause na yun unless otherwise provided by law? You're giving yourselves the power to decide whether we like foreign businesses to own lands or to participate in public utilities like communication, power, and everything, exploration of possible mineral resources. Hindi ba kaya ng Kongreso talakayin yun? At kailangan na ang ibang ahensya na gagawa noon, yung mga, baka yung mga ihahalal din, mas hindi nakakaintindi. Kung hindi maintindihan ng Kongreso yung unless otherwise provided by law, ay ano pa maintindihan ninyo? Ngayon, ano pa ba yun? Dalawa yung bill na nakita na i-file na ninyo eh.
Dalawa po yun, mahal naming panauhin. Yung pong isa, ang una po, ang
Economic provision.
pareho po siyang economic provision po.
Ang nakalagay doon, ang idadagdag lang ninyo sa
Unless otherwise.
provision unless provided by law.
Opo.
Yung isa ganun din.
Opo, yung isa po, final po yun ni Senator Win Gatchalian.
Tama yun eh. Naintindihan ng tao yung unless provided by law. Ibig sabihin nun, no. Excuse me. You are what I understand in what you want to do is instead of making the people decide these issues, you transfer the power to determine the advisability or non-advisability in the participation of foreign capital in the development of the country, instead of shackling, tying our people permanently to a restrictive provision where your Congress has no flexibility at all. Congress is supposed to be the guardian of the economy, of the progress of the country, its political stability, and so forth and so on. You are the sovereign, actually. The president executes and implement and enforce the decision of Congress. That's why I agree with your formulation that insert that provision unless otherwise provided by law, and that corrects everything. Cannot Congress debate that simple phrase such that you have to call a constitutional convention to do it? I'm sorry to say this, but if you cannot tackle that, what can you tackle?
Mr. Chair. Manong, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Manong, just a basic question. Our Constitution is already 36 years old, And as you've mentioned, there are a lot of antiquated provisions in our Constitution. And do you think it's already time to amend the Constitution right now? And as you mentioned earlier, you are against CONCON because it entails a lot of expenses. Billions of pesos are going to be spent if we use the form of mode of CONCON. Are you amenable sa Constituent Assembly instead of CONCON, Manong?
Both performing your legislative function, enacting laws, and allot 1 day or 2 days in a week to deal with your constitutional changes. There's nothing difficult to understand about inserting a clause like unless otherwise provided by law. Now, if you're going to overhaul the political portion of the Constitution, that will be different issue altogether. But again, as I said, if the overhaul involves only a change of form of government from presidential to parliamentary, then you do not need a constitutional convention. All you have to do is to pass a joint resolution, vote separately by three-fourths votes to adopt
Voting separately, Manong.
the Constitution. By the way, some say that the Senate is only a number in this. It cannot be. Both houses must vote separately, whether it is written in the Constitution or not. Your separate bodies in the Constitution. You have separate houses, separate sets of officials, separate journal, separate quorum, separate roll call.
So did the framers of the Constitution overlook the provision of voting jointly?
You do not have to write that in the Constitution, in the Constitution that you must vote separately. The very nature of your bicameralism dictates that you must vote separately.
Common sense.
Apo, Senator Tolentino, apo.
Senator Enrile. So in effect, Your Honor, you are amenable to the proposition that there is a fourth way of amending the Constitution. As what is written in the Constitution, you have Constitutional Convention, you have Constituent Assembly, and you have People's Initiative. But there are some commentators who've been saying that there is a fourth way. The fourth way is just pass an ordinary bill and then submit it for ratification by the people. Is that an appropriate way of interpreting the bicameralism mode? Pass a bill, approved by both houses, voting separately, submitted to the people for ratification. And ergo, you change the Constitution. Is that a fourth way, Your Honor?
Constituent Assembly or People's Initiative, you cannot ignore the people. It has to be ratified by them in a plebiscite. But as far as the method of adopting an amendment, there are three: Constitutional Convention, Constituent Assembly, and People's Initiative. The choice belongs to you as Congress of the people, except that the initiative of the people will have to emanate from the people themselves, but there is a vote and some requirements for that to happen. But by and large, the intent and concept, primary concept of the Constitution, it is Congress itself should be the one to introduce the amendments so that it will be expeditious, because it is the fastest way of achieving your amendment. It is no different in passing a law, only that the vote is different and the process is different. You involve the people. In a law, you don't. The vote is different.
If I may ask a follow-up question, Your Honor. I've been totally against, ever since, the granting of a wide latitude of power to the executive branch to formulate implementing rules and regulations. It has developed and evolved in such a way that they decide when to draft the IRR, when to issue the IRR, and sometimes the IRRs would be in conflict with the law, Your Honor. So the tenor of my question is that, would that conflict with your earlier proposition of just adding the unless otherwise provided by law, because the law would be transformed again by the executive branch into their own version of IRR, which might be in conflict with the law?
The law cannot be modified by an IRR. The water of the spring cannot rise above the source. The law is complete in every respect. The one that will have to interpret it with finality is the Supreme Court. But as far as legislation is concerned, when you pass a law, it is complete in every respect. Whatever IRR there is must conform with the text, literal text, and spirit of the law. It cannot be modified. With due respect to my side of the government, I'm now a member of the cabinet. We cannot amend the law. We have no amendatory powers. That is a practice. I do not know how it was introduced, and it's being abused.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just made that clarification because if we really push for the unless otherwise provided for by law clause, that is again subject to abuse, and the oversight functions of Congress cannot extend to the nitty-gritty details of what the executive branch is doing unless overturned by the Supreme Court. But I agree, totally agree, Your Honor, Senator Enrile. Thank you, sir.